Well, hello and welcome back to another live stream here. Today, I am going to be sharing with you a conversation with somebody that is doing something incredible in the world. He is, well, first of all, his name is Kevin Thompson. We're going to bring him on in just a moment. But one of the things that is unique about Kevin Thompson is that he is a connector and an entrepreneur. And I say that that's unique because I know a lot of connectors in this world. I've met so many people whose talent and gift is introducing people they know to other people that those people should know. And massive value is added to people's lives as a result of these connections. Up until now, I've not met anyone who has found a great business model for how to earn income and participate in some of the benefits of that value that's been brought on. Anyway, today we're going to have a conversation. Can you get paid to connect people you know with other people you know? And to do that, we're going to talk to Kevin Thompson. Kevin, I was just introduced to you by our mutual friend, Chuck Marting. He was a guest on your podcast. Your podcast is the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. Is that right?
That's right.
And afterwards, he said, I would love to introduce you to Cliff. And so you and I jumped on a conversation just for about 30 minutes or so the other day. And you wanted to see if I might be a good fit for your podcast. We're scheduled to do that down the road. But when I heard about what you've been up to, what you shared with me, I said, is this being recorded? And you said, no, I don't record these calls. And I'm like, let's get you on a live stream. Let's record this conversation. So, Kevin, I don't know if you have any clue what you shared with me, but I'm sure you've had so many of these conversations. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into doing what you're doing today with the $1 Million Relationships Podcast.
Yeah. So I used to run a publishing company for 12 years from about 2004 through 2016. And that publishing company, the way I grew that business was by primarily doing strategic partnerships with other entrepreneurs who helped me get my messaging out into the marketplace. And that business would have never grown the way that it did if not for all those partners that I had. I did almost 600 strategic partnerships over that 12 years. And I was so grateful for those partners and the role that they played in my life, in my business, and they were so much more than just business friends. They were like friends that I just, when we had the opportunity to get together, if we're going to events or whatever, I mean, I would always get together with them or run into them there and just be so excited that I just got to meet them there in person and stuff. And along the way, one of the other things that I found out was one of my God-given unique abilities is I love talking with entrepreneurs. I love finding out what they're working on, what's got them jazzed and excited, what challenges they're dealing with, what problems they're dealing with, what opportunities that they're wanting to take advantage of, that they're just looking for more clarity on. And when I'm talking with them and they're sharing stuff with me, I just naturally default to who do I know who might be able to help them with this. And I would just start making those connections. And Cliff, I have been doing this for years. I mean, for 20 plus years, 20, probably more than 22 years even. I've been doing this. And for most of the time, I just did it to just be helpful and be of service and just let people know that how much I appreciated them and stuff. And so it didn't become a business for many years later. And it wasn't even, well, 14 years ago, I connected these two guys, Brian Kurtz and Perry Marshall. And within 8 months of introducing those two guys, Well, Brian was working for a company called Boardroom Reports. They were trying to figure out the Google AdWords platform. They were pulling their hair out with this thing. He's like, Kevin, we don't know what we're doing. And I'm like, well, Perry Marshall, him and his team, that's what they do. He's like, well, you know Perry? I'm like, yeah. I said, I'll introduce you guys. And so Perry and his team helped Boardroom with the Google AdWords platform. But beyond that, Perry and Brian became close friends. 8 months later, they're hosting this event back in the Washington, D.C. area called the Titans of Direct Response. And there was over 300 entrepreneurs who joined this event. And I don't remember what the investment was, a couple $1,000s. And like three or four of my friends were there that day attending that event. And so I start getting text messages from them, and they're saying, hey, I'm at Perry and Brian's event, and they're on stage right now talking, just opening comments at the event, talking about you as being the one that connected them. And like this would have never even happened if not for you and stuff. And Paul Bingham was one of those guys that was texting me that morning. And Paul said, he tells me what was going on. And then he says, Kev, one never knows where a well planted seed will sprout. And it was when I got that text from Paul that it first got me thinking, wouldn't it be cool if I had a business where I just got to do that all the time? And that was what planted the seed with me. And it took some time to evolve. In fact, I mean, yeah, I was thinking about it, having conversations around it, all of that kind of stuff. But it wasn't until 2017 where things started really happening. So I don't know how far you want me to go, Cliff,
I
but
want to go as far as I can and as you're willing to go. And here's why, Kevin, because I know people in my life who have connected me to people in their lives. And some of those relationships we're going to talk about in your $1 million relationship podcast. I've generated millions of dollars as a result of being connected to someone. And
yeah,
the people who have made these connections, it was something they did out of the kindness of their heart. I'm
yeah,
sure that they would love to find a way to benefit from this incredible valuable thing that they're doing in the world. And so I would love to hear as much as your story as possible. So what I'd love to
okay,
hear from you in for just a moment is you had this dream, this seed of an idea. I wonder if I could actually just make a living from connecting with people. And you
yeah.
said you thought about it, but it took a while before things really started taking off. I'd love to hear what were those original ideas, and specifically, were there any that you came up with that turned out to be, there's no way I'm going to do that, and you're glad that you didn't pursue that particular route?
Well, I can tell you, I definitely tried things that did not work. Definitely did a lot of that.
Well, let's camp there for a little while. I oftentimes love hearing about things that don't work and what you learned through the process.
Yeah, yeah. So, and candidly, um, the on one hand, I the idea of having a business where I got compensated for making introductions like this, which was something that I got so much joy and pleasure and satisfaction from, and I'd already been doing it for years for free, not charging anything for it. And now when the thought of getting compensated for it, I battled with that for a while, candidly. And I remember talking with some friends of mine. I'm not going to name names because they had the best of intentions, but I remember talking with some of my friends around the idea of this. One gentleman I was talking with, and and like that I was like, man, I just really been giving thought to this and how I can turn this into a business and making and they knew me well for being a connector and stuff. And in fact, they were a pretty good connector themselves. And he told me, he's like, man, Kevin, he's like, you know what? He said, I've always done that for free. And I couldn't even imagine charging anyone for doing that. And this person at the time, I had so much respect for them and so much admiration for them that I left that conversation really feeling deflated
Mm.
and like, man, maybe I shouldn't even be thinking about this. Maybe I shouldn't even be trying to do this. Maybe I'm just barking up the wrong tree. Maybe this isn't even right ethically to do this, all that stuff that I and so it wasn't until 2017 where I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about something else. I don't remember what it was, but when we were almost done with our conversation, he asked me, he's like, Kevin, he's like, and his name was Tim. He's like, why have you never held an in-person get together for all these amazing entrepreneurs that you know? And I'm like, I don't know, Tim. I guess I've just never thought about that and stuff. And he's like, well, I want to really encourage you to think about that because if you did something like that, I would totally want to be a part of that. And I'm like, you would. And I'm like, so okay, so let me make sure I understand this, Tim. So if I held a get together, and let's just say I held it right here in my home. I live in Arlington, Washington, about 40 miles north of Seattle. Tim at the time lived in Tampa, Florida. That's all the way across the country. And at the time, I know for a fact, because I used to go to Tampa pretty regular, there is not even a straight shot flight from Seattle to Tampa. There wasn't then. There is now, but there wasn't back then. I told Tim, I said, so are you telling me that you would invest whatever I was charging and that you would hop on a plane and you would come all the way across the country to come to my house to attend that? And he's like, I would totally do that. I'm like, why would you do that? And he's like, because Kevin, I know the caliber of people that you would invite to that, and they would be the kind of people that I want to meet. And I was just like, wow. And so that night, I mean, I remember sitting at dinner that evening with my wife and my kids, and like I couldn't get this off my mind. I'm like, wow, this because this what it felt like, Cliff, was planning a party for a bunch of my awesome friends. And I was telling my wife at dinner, I was like, and I telling her about the conversation with Tim, and I'm like, we could host a get together right here at the home. Our home's big enough for this. We could have 15 people come and and my wife even started getting excited about it. She goes, why heck, I'd help plan catering and all. I mean, she's a consummate party planner. She loves hosting parties and get-togethers. So she was all about this. And and so I couldn't sleep that night. In fact, the next morning I was up at like 4:35 in the morning. And I was sitting here at the desk in my office, and I started going through all my contacts, my email contacts, my Facebook friends, my LinkedIn friends, and I started making the list of, well, who would you want to invite? And I just started adding names to the list. And when I got done, I don't know, there was probably, I don't know, 120, 130 names on the list. And I didn't give thought to, I just was like going through and just making the list. And then once I had the list, I said, okay, so why these entrepreneurs? Why are these entrepreneurs the ones you want to invite? And I was like, what's the commonality between all of them? And I was like, as I started looking at them, I was like, well, you know what? I was like, every single one of these entrepreneurs, they are a well-established entrepreneur. They're making a really big impact through their businesses. They have a track record of delivering results for the clients that they serve. And on the other side of the coin, they are some of the most giving and generous people you would ever meet. In fact, every one of them, they are hardwired to show up ready to help, to serve, to contribute, to pour into others. I mean, that's hardwired into their DNA. They couldn't show up any other way. And so I just started having conversations. And in fact, that morning, I had already had a friend of mine. I had a call scheduled with a friend of mine on another topic. Travis Sago was his name. And we finished talking about what we were scheduled to talk about. And I just like, Travis, I said, I want to run something by you. And so I start telling him about the conversation I had yesterday with Tim, and here's what I'm thinking. And I said, man, I couldn't even sleep last night. And I got up this morning, I start making the list, and of course, your name I added to the list, and uh, And I said, I don't have a lot of clarity around what it's all going to look like, but I know what my intention is. I just want to bring the right entrepreneurs together so I can introduce you and just give you an opportunity to get to know each other and just create some really valuable and meaningful and profitable relationships for all of you. And Travis is like, well, are you open to feedback, Kev? And I'm like, totally. And he's like, well, I'll tell you what. He's like, I live in Russellville, Arkansas. And I'm like, I'm like you on your end. I'm an hour away from my airport, just like you're an hour away from your airport. So getting to you, it's an all-day thing. Getting home is an all-day thing. Plus, whatever time, you're talking 2.5 days. So we're talking 5 days total. I am not a big fan of leaving my home and leaving my wife. But he's like, I would totally sign up to come to your thing. And he's like, and I would come for the same reason Tim gave you, because I know who else you would invite, and I'd be wanting to meet him and stuff. And the first six guys I spoke with, Cliff, I was 6 for 6. That they all said to one version or the other, Kevin, if you do this, I want to be a part of it and stuff. The sixth guy was my friend Jesse, and he starts asking, when are you going to do this? And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I'm just having conversations with folks. And he's like, well, you need to set dates. And I'm like, okay. I was like, I'll set some dates and I'll let you know. And he's like, nope. He's like, set dates right now while we're talking. And I'm like, okay. So, and this was April. And I was like, and a couple of friends of mine told me that they were going to be busy all summer already. And they were like, Kev, whatever you do, please don't host it at least until August. And if you'll just wait off until August, I guarantee whatever day you host it, I'll be there and stuff. And so I kind of had that in mind. And I said, so he's like, then pick some dates in August. And he's like, you want to do 2.5 days, pick some dates in August. So I did that. And he's like, great. Now pick some dates for September 1 month later. I'm like, okay. I was like, why do you say that? And he's like, well, Kev, you're only counting on 15. You want to have 15. That's what your home can seat comfortably and what have you. He's like, you're going to fill this thing up. Set another date for a month later and invite 15 to each event. And he's like, because he's like, you'll fill one up easily. And he's like, heck, you're going to fill two up. And I was like, okay. And he's like, okay. He's like, sign me up for August, get a hold of the other guys, let them know the dates, get them signed up, and then just keep doing your thing. And I'll see you in August, man. And, and we did, we filled those two events
So
with 15 each.
I love this. There are so many beautiful angles about what you've shared that I want to make sure that people are picking up on. The first thing that stands out to me, Kevin, is the fact that you got up at 4:30 in the morning because you couldn't sleep because you were so excited about this.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were so sure of its success in your mind's eye, that you knew that you were onto something, that you had to start really planning this out, making this happen, because you knew, based upon these conversations, you knew this was going to be a success. You even enrolled your wife. She got excited. There's so much about your enthusiasm and your own faith and belief that these events would add the value that you've been told that they would, that easily enrolled those other people. And what I'm getting at from a sales and marketing perspective, there's a number of people who are out there who believe that they have value to add to others, but they suffer a lot from imposter syndrome. And so
Totally.
they have more fear and self-doubt and anxiety about, will people see this value, than confidence in knowing the actual value they're bringing to the table. My guess, obviously hindsight's 2020, right? But my guess is that if your friends told you that, oh, you could totally do this, but you were filled with a lot of anxiety and fear about, how would people perceive me? What if people tell me no? I don't know if I could really pull this off. If you woke up that next morning and had that very first conversation, like you said, and at the end it said this, but you hesitate, it's like, I don't know if you'd be interested. My guess is that you would have gotten 6 no's with your first
Sure.
6 people. And so
Sure.
I just wanted to point out, I could hear the energy of enthusiasm and confidence that woke you up at 4:30 in the morning, which I believe contributes a great deal to the success that you had with those first 6 conversations. Obviously, your relationships that you've built with these people can't be taken out of the equation, but even with those relationships, if you don't have that bold, confident enthusiasm that this is valuable when you're actually sharing it with the person, it's a more challenging sale is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that,
Yeah.
Kevin?
I totally agree. I 100% agree. And and I will there was definitely some unknowns. And in fact, I can distinctly remember that first morning at that first event in August of 2017 at my home. And every we had a great breakfast that we had, my wife had catered in for us and stuff. And in fact, you know what? We one I'll tell you a cool story. One of the guys that I got introduced to, I didn't even know him when I was starting to host these events and stuff. One of the guys that I invited, Jeff, he introduced me to this other guy, Mike. And he was like, Kevin, he's like, man, you got to talk to Mike because, man, he would love to come to something like this. And I know Mike well. And I know you don't know him yet, but man, he's your kind of guy, Kev. You guys are just going to totally hit it off. And so he said, I'm going to get you connected so you guys can have a conversation because you're going to want to invite him too. And I'm like, all right. And so sure enough, we had a conversation. Mike and I did. We totally hit it off. And he's like, well, Kevin, if you're inviting me, man, I definitely want to come. And I'm like, I'm definitely inviting you, Mike. And so and then he says, he's like, my biggest concern, because he was an Amazon seller at the time. And he was selling $1 million a year worth of cat tunnels on Amazon. And doing a really great job. I mean, just brilliant marketing the way he did it. But he was like, my biggest concern, Kev, is I just don't know how I'm going to be valuable of service to the other attendees. And I was like, well, you know what? For one, Mike, I mean, that speaks volumes about you and who you are, that's your biggest concern. And I'm just going to challenge you. Just let that go and just come with the intention that you want to be of value and service to the other participants that come. And when the opportunity arises, you'll immediately know it and you'll just know how to do that. And he's like, all right. He said, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. And he ends up calling me back 3 days later. And he's like, Kev, he's like, I've just been giving a lot of thought to this. And I don't know if this will work out. I don't know if it'll fit in, but if it would, he's like, I know you're up in Arlington and I'm down here in Seattle. And he's like, but if it would fit in, he's like, I got this 65-foot yacht down here. And I would love to host you and everybody else is coming on the boat. He's like, August is such a beautiful time of year. It's perfect weather here in Seattle. And I'd love to take everybody cruising around Seattle and just give them a view of the city from the water that they couldn't get from land. And I'm like, okay. I say, wow. I was like, well, so what do you need for that, Mike? And he's like, Kev, I don't need nothing. He's like, that's my contribution to you and the other people. And I'm like, you know what? I was like, wow, what a generous offer. I was like, man, thank you so much. And I was like, yeah, I said, let's figure out how we can make this work. And so we did. And so the first day in August of 2017, that was the day of the eclipse. And everybody flew into Seattle that day. I think it was a Monday, I believe. And we just went down to Fisherman's Terminal where Mike had his boat, and everybody just met on the boat right there. And we spent the whole afternoon on his boat, and that went cruising around Seattle in the boat, and had a great dinner on the boat. And then we came up to my place that evening, and they stayed at a local hotel near my place. And then we started the meeting the next morning at my house here and stuff. And but even that first morning at my home here, after breakfast, when we go out to the living room and everybody kind of gets seated and we get ready to start kicking things off, on one hand, I am looking at this and going, wow, look who is sitting in my living room right now. this is really amazing. And then I'm like, okay, God, please let this be valuable for them,
Hmm.
you know? And, I knew what my intention was, but I'd never actually done this before, and a lot of it, it wasn't like I didn't go into this with a laid out game plan for 2.5 days worth of content or anything. I just went into this with, I want to make meaningful, long-lasting, real, rewarding, profitable relationships for everybody here. I wanna facilitate that.
I love
And
that.
so I just started it off and started the meeting off, and I said, "Hey, this is how we're gonna do it, and we're just gonna share from our hearts, and, whatever is shared here stays right here, and you're not gonna get an ounce of judgment from anybody here because you are gonna be surrounded by like-minded entrepreneurs who are making a big impact through their business just like you are, and if they could help you, man, nothing would make them feel more amazing than being able to do that and being able to pour into you, and the only way that we can make sure that you get exactly what you want most from this experience is you've just got to let us know what that is and we'll make sure you leave here with that." And so that was kind of the structure for the, and it just led to some really amazing conversations over the course of that next couple of days.
Kevin, this is amazing. I have so many questions for you. The second thing that stands out to me is the fact that you chose to host it in your home. And I don't know what your home is, if it's some fancy, beautiful, place that just is just impressive or whatever. But I imagine some people would think it's like, oh, I'm gonna need to go. Let's get us all to a fancy resort. Let's go to the Bahama Islands or something like that. But I love the fact that you chose to invite people into your home. My wife and I
Yeah.
have been doing that for many years. We invite people into our home. It's a very special honor. We consider it an honor to say, you know what, we value you enough to say we invite you into our space. And I
Yeah.
love that you did that. It gives such a personal feel to it. The other thing that I love is that you didn't have a clear picture of exactly what those 2.5 days would be, but you absolutely had no doubt whatsoever about the vision as far as the intention and the value that people would receive by coming and investing in this. My next question for you: how much did you charge for those first two events?
I charged $5,000 for those first two events.
And you
And,
had
and
15 people come to each of them?
15 people. Yep. 15 people. Wow. So 14 people to the second one because one guy could not make it last minute. And, but he was like, "Kevin, I don't want a refund or nothing because this is on me, not you." We sold 15 seats, but we had 14 people show up for the second one and stuff.
Well,
So,
thank you for sharing that. I want, because that's a big thing for some people to get an idea on a financial side, what is possible. And some people will struggle with pricing whatever they're at, and that's a great thing. Wherever you are in your pricing journey, you'll want to work through those kinds of things. But I love the fact. Okay, so $5,000, and that was just $5,000 to you for the facilitation and participation in this event, and they were responsible for their own, I'm assuming, and I'm confirming here with you, they were responsible for their own booking of airfare, their own airline tickets, their own hotel,
yeah.
stuff like that. And so that was all in addition to the $5,000 they paid you. They paid for their own airfare and hotel, correct?
That is correct. And then
Okay.
once they got to my house, we made sure that I wanted them to walk in the door of this house and not think about another thing until they left. So we took care of everything for them, whatever they wanted. We had most of it here. We had meals planned and plenty of. I mean, there was like an abundance of food.
Yep.
And so
So
food
breakfast,
and
lunch, dinner, everything was covered.
snacks, coffee,
Yep.
drinks. I mean, if people drank a certain thing and we wouldn't have thought to get it, we went and got it for them. My wife and daughters are so awesome with that. They're like, "Oh, you like to drink this? Well, we'll go get you. What would you like, a 6 pack or a 12 pack? We'll go get that for you." And so
Yep.
just stuff like that. And And just, yeah, so there was definitely and and we took everybody out to really nice restaurants each evening and stuff. I mean, top of the line restaurants and all that, because like I wanted them to have just an amazing experience, just so they could focus on creating relationships without having to worry about anything else, you know.
So I've hosted a number of events like this. And if I had to guess, you're looking at 2.5 days, nice restaurant. Did they get 2 dinners out or 3 dinners out with you?
Two, well, so that the no, 3 dinners. We had three
Okay.
dinners on both events and stuff. Yes.
Okay. So if my guess is that you received $5,000 per participant and your cost was right around $1,000 to $1,500.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So very profitable event, and you are actually now successfully getting paid to do that thing that you dreamed of doing. So you had
Yes.
your first event. I would still have additional questions here. So walk me through what days, let's specifically focus on August 2017.
Okay.
What days of the week were they?
So I believe it was a Monday. So everybody flew in on a Monday. We went to Michael's boat and just hung out on his boat all afternoon. And then everybody worked their way up to my place, and they all stayed in a motel that evening. So once we left Michael's boat, we were basically done as a group. They all had reservations at the hotel up by my place, and then they came to my home the next morning, and then we spent the next 2 days together, all day at my home, and then dinners out in the evening, and then the third day, or the fourth day, I guess it would be, is when everybody flew to go home and stuff. So
So let me just confirm that I'm following this. So you went out to the boat, and did you have dinner after the boat, and then they went to the hotel?
no, we had dinner on the
We had
boat.
dinner on the boat. Okay, that's good. Okay, so for those who are listening, and I'm putting my mind into the person who's listening to this because they're wondering, gosh, I wonder if I could actually do this. And the answer, very likely yes. And so what I'm thinking of is I love the idea of having people fly in, whether it's whatever day of the week it is, but I love the idea that just come in on Monday, and then hey, from anywhere between 2 o'clock to, let's just say, 5 o'clock, show up at this place. Now you may not have a friend who's offered their yacht, so I would encourage you to go to find a place where you could have like a bowling alley that you could reserve for a couple of hours, or some other community sport thing, or even just a local pub or something like that, that's a little nice for people to get to network and just be comfortable and introduce each other, and then maybe a private dining room or something like that where you can all settle in and be fed and have dinner conversations and stuff like that first night, and then get started that next day. And so Tuesday, what time did you invite people to show up? Doors open at what
Uh,
time?
so people showed up here at my home at 8 o'clock for breakfast. And then we planned to get the meeting started at 9 o'clock.
Yep, very good. And then you wrapped the end of Tuesday by what time so that you could transport to dinner?
We were done at the house here at 5 o'clock, and everybody went back to their hotel and stuff. And we had the limo bus meet them at the hotel at 6:30 to pick them up to take them to dinner for a 7 o'clock dinner reservation.
I love the limo bus idea. Perfect touch. By the way, was it one of the fancy ones with the disco
Oh
ball
yeah, it
inside?
was a
Yeah.
nice. Well, it didn't have the disco ball, but it was a
Okay.
nice limo bus for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then out to a nice restaurant, and that's wonderful. And then same kind of schedule for Wednesday. Was it 8 o'clock in the
Same
morning then?
kind of schedule for Wednesday, and then after dinner, they just took the limo bus took them back to the hotel, and then Friday is when everybody just was on their own to leave and get back to the airport and head home and stuff.
Friday or Thursday?
Or Thursday,
Yeah.
excuse me. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
Thursday. Yeah.
Excellent. This is brilliant. I hope people's wheels are spinning as they're hearing this. Like, oh my gosh, I hope you are. I'm just envisioning right now, Kevin, there are people who didn't have a clue what they were in for when they clicked play on this podcast episode. And
Yeah.
now they're like jotting down ideas. They're choosing a date on their calendar.
Yeah.
They're ready to. Oh, that's the thing I forgot is that you got on the phone calls. You started calling people. You started talking to people. What I love about what you've chosen already, what you've shared in your story about how these got started, you didn't have a date already set in mind. You just started having
No.
conversation, gauging interest, and with
Yeah.
your enthusiasm and your absolute commitment to knowing what the value you're going to bring to this, people said, "Dude, count me in." But what I love about this is those conversations you sussed out. Hey, I'm going to host these things. The question I have for you is what time frame would work best for you? I kind of like the idea that you're gauging the interest over the groups of people that you've already put on your list to reach out to, and
Yeah.
the idea of actually choosing a date based upon what will work with the highest number of people who have already committed. I'll be there.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a little
Yes.
different than what I've done in the past, which is I've chosen a date that fits in within my schedule, and then I went out and started inviting people, and they're like, "Oh man, I'd love to do that if it weren't
But the
this
date
week."
won't work.
Yeah,
Yes.
and if, I mean,
Yes.
thankfully, I've had a ton of success with hosting live events and had people to come, but I do like the idea of, hey,
And
let's.
I've done it that way too, Cliff, where I
Yep.
just choose a date and I do get that response. Oh man, I'd love to, but those dates don't work. And you know what? It is what it is. And like I'll keep them in mind next time I do something,
Well, you
you
know what
know.
I do sometimes, Kevin, is I actually say, "Oh man, that's a bummer." I'll tell you what. What look at your calendar right now. You choose a date in October, and that's when our next one is.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's fun.
Nice.
Oh man, this is so good. So you did this in August of 2017. You did the second one when?
September of 2017, 1 month later.
So 1 month
And so, and I
later.
will tell you, so at the end of the event, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday evening, as we were closing out the event for the 2 days, 2.5 days, um, I ended up making an offer, and it was the simplest thing ever, Cliff. I just simply said, hey, for I really and actually what the way we ended it is we just went around the room and we spent the last hour and a half everybody sharing the value that they got from being a part of it and stuff. So we just finished letting everybody do that for about an hour and a half, and then I just said, I have just really appreciated hosting this for you, and it just I was just really, it was an emotional thing because I'm just like, wow, look what happened, and this did work, and this did happen like I envisioned, and I just told everybody, I said, you know what, is if you got value from this and you feel it would be valuable to have somebody like me in your corner, intentionally focused on making introductions, on being that connector and conduit of trust specifically for you, I would be totally honored to have that conversation with you and talk about riding with you for the next year. And I will let you know what I would like for in return for my involvement in that is I would like $25,000 for that. And immediately, Travis Sagal sitting on my couch, I can still remember he I'm in, just raised his hand, I'm in. And 5 other people ended up following his lead, and 6 people said yes to that offer. And 1 month later, in September, 6 more people said yes to that offer, with 14 people in attendance at that event and stuff.
That's
And
beautiful.
that launched me in this new direction and stuff.
I
And
love
I
that.
won't say that it was all like my youngest daughter will say, it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns. But we figured it out. We figured out a lot of what didn't work. And I had to figure out a business model that was more conducive for me and would allow me to show up in a powerful way and just be me versus me just feeling so scattered and like, oh, you got to deliver so much because they paid you, they invested in you, and they're your friends, and you want to deliver, which I did. But man, I was busting my butt for those first 2 years because I was using a model that wasn't in alignment for me as why, you
Yeah.
know.
It's a shame we didn't know each other back then, Kevin, because in a single one-on-one conversation, around mindset, I might have helped you understand that they already received more than that $25,000 in value for the year that they paid with just that 2.5 day event that you hosted.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
I love this. I do. Before we go into what that looked like, what that package looked like, I want to ask you one more question about the two events that you hosted in August and September. And that is, during those days, did you do anything like a mastermind hot seat? Did you give each person like the floor to share what's going on in their world and
Yes.
ask the others to provide feedback? Did you use hot seats, or if you're familiar with the term?
Yeah, I am familiar with the term. And yes, everybody had an opportunity to share one-on-one like that. And I gave them a specific format to use. And so each person, including their share and getting feedback and insight from everybody else, they got between 40-45 minutes each. And so we did, like, half of them one day and the other half the next day. That was the format for that and stuff. And I was really, really intentional about how they go about sharing and stuff.
Yeah.
And so yes, that was the format for the event.
And did you do anything outside of that format, other than the networking meals and dinners?
No, no,
Okay,
that
so
was
it
the
was
whole.
basically a 2.5 day networking and mastermind event.
Yes. And now, yeah, so that's exactly what those first two events were. What I do now is considerably different, but yes, that's what the first two events were.
Okay, so do you do events still today?
I do lots of virtual stuff and I do some events. So I have not done an in-person event for a year and a half now. Probably going to do one in April again of next year is probably when I'm going to host my next one. The last one I did, I hosted. I rented a 20,000 square foot castle that's right here in my hometown, and that place, that was, you walk in the door and myself and everybody else was like, wow, look at this place.
Yep.
And that was a cool experience. Like each of the days, we just moved around the house in different rooms and stuff, And so,
All right. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I've got you for about 15 more minutes. So there's a couple of questions that are going through my mind. This $25,000 package, I want to hear one thing that did not go well. And then I want to hear two or three things that really you figured out. It's like, this is much better. This is more in alignment
yeah,
with the way I can actually
yeah,
work. So first, I'd love to hear the one thing that didn't go well.
yeah. So the one thing that did not go well, the way I set that up, I was having one-on-one calls with all of those people that said yes to that offer.
How frequently?
And over the next 2 years, a total of 30 people said yes to that offer over a 2 year period between 2017 and 2019. And I was having one on one calls with every one of those people every month that would last. We set aside an hour. And I will tell you, Cliff, by 2019, that became such a job, and I was working so hard. In some cases, I was hitting home runs, and in other cases, I didn't feel I was, man, I was hitting maybe first base, second base, and pretty much all these entrepreneurs were my friends, and so I felt like I was letting them down and stuff. I felt like I wasn't delivering, and but I wasn't talking to them about it because I was like, well, I just so there was a lot of things that there was good things that happened for sure. But like I said, it got to a point where I was like, I don't want to bring on another client. I don't even want to keep this going the way it's going, but I didn't even know what to do about it exactly. And I remember being on a flight home from Dallas one time, wishing the doggone plane would just crash because I was like, at least my wife and kids would have the insurance money. I mean, that's how bad it got.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful that a friend had reached out to me and I just started sharing with him what was going on. And she's like, Kevin, she goes, I don't think it's as bad as you think it is. She goes, have you been talking with them about this? I'm like, no. I said, because I don't want, I feel bad. I was like, she's like, you should talk with them. They are your friends, Kevin. And I don't think it's nearly as bad as you think it is. I said, you're telling yourself a story that's probably not totally true.
Yep.
And she goes, and she goes, granted, she goes, you're using a business model that, yeah, where do you go from here? And you're just working it both, you're working the candle at both ends, and you can't do this. You can't do this. And like nobody's getting you at your best anymore. You're doing your thing, you're getting compensated, but you're not at your best. And how can you expect to show up that way for them? And so we figured out what didn't work, and we started experimenting. And fortunately, those people were open to experimenting because they knew my heart, they knew my intention, they knew I had a gift and stuff, and so they extended grace to me, and they're like, "Kev, it's okay, man."
Yep.
And we know who you are. And so we started playing with some different models. And being a connector and conduit of trust is way easier in a group setting than in a one-on-one setting with me and them. And like I thrive in that setting. And so we figured out how to get people together in groups of entrepreneurs instead, whether it's on Zoom or in person. I do lots of stuff on Zoom. So yeah, we figured out a model that works far better and is in alignment with who I am, and it just allows me to show up in an empowering way and just use my God-given gifts to serve the people I get to serve.
Yeah. There are so many valuable lessons in the story that you just shared, and I trust my audience to pull out the most meaningful insights for themselves. So you mentioned the fact that today you're doing several different group experiences, many of which are online via Zoom, some are in person. The Zoom calls that you're doing, where instead of meeting with all these clients who have paid you one on one each month, you're hosting how many Zoom calls for those individuals today?
Right now, I'm hosting between 4 and 5 Zoom calls a month for
Okay.
clients.
So, and how,
Big difference.
yeah, absolutely. Instead of
we
30
got we
call
got
1 hour calls
bandwidth
a month.
now.
So you said 5 or 6?
Yeah, but four to five right now currently.
Okay.
Yes.
4 to 5 calls per month. How long are the calls?
Between 2 and 2.5 hours.
Perfect. And so my next question, these are just logistics because I'm interested.
Mhm.
Are all of your clients invited to attend any of those sessions, or is it kind of cohorts where some people are in part of this group and some part are part of these calls? How does that work out?
It is cohorts, so they don't get to choose which calls. I let them know which calls, and each quarter we switch up the groups. And so I'm like, because I'm on every call,
Yep.
and I get to look at like, oh, this person's doing this and this one. And so next quarter I want to put these two together and stuff. And so I get to do some of that kind of stuff. And so yeah, but they're so like if their call is on the second Tuesday, then it's going to be on the second Tuesday for the whole quarter, kind of a thing. So three monthly calls on the second Tuesdays. And so that's how it works. And so then the next quarter, so we just started, we're October, we just start a new quarter with groups next week and stuff. And
So
and so they'll be in those groups for this month, next month, and the month after that. Then the following month we'll start a new group and a new quarter.
so you're saying that you have 4 to 5 calls per month. Is that 4 to 5 different groups? So each group only
Yes,
meets once a month. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay,
That is
that's
correct.
and are those people still paying and investing at the $25,000 a year level?
All but two. So they are, well, so it's not 25,000 a year now. There's two options. They can do the ownership plan, and that is 4,000 a month. Or if they do a pay in full, it's like 22,000 for the or excuse me, 4,000 a month, or yeah, 22,000 for a 6 month engagement. We always start with a 6 month engagement because I just want to get traction going, and then after that, we go month to month from there on and stuff. And I've got clients that have been with me for multiple years now and stuff,
Yeah.
and but only two of them are on the ownership path. Everybody else is on the partnership path, where what it's just a $2,000 a month retainer, and then they also do a 20 it varies 15 to 20% revenue share with me. And so that's how we do the partnership path. And so pretty much everybody but two are on the partnership path.
Tell me a little bit what a revenue share is, and how, and is that something that's just a gentleman's agreement, or is it contractual, or what's going on? How do you work that
It
out?
is contractual. I'm a really simple guy though. It's a 4-page agreement, and that agreement is mostly about what I'm going to deliver for them. And it's a little bit. It's probably 2/3 what I'm going to do for them, and 1/3 what I expect from them and stuff. And if we're doing a revenue share, they agree to the revenue share. And but we start every single group call with sharing wins. And so people regularly are getting a hold of me. Hey, Kev, will you send me a payment link? I want to send you our revenue share and stuff. In fact, I had to have my merchant account. They create a special link that I can send. It takes them to a secure page, and they can enter in whatever dollar amount they want. Because I'm like, otherwise, I have to have all these SKUs, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
And so it's just a link, and they enter in whatever dollar amount they want to and stuff for what we're doing together. So.
So you don't need to share with me any client information, but can you give me an example of a successful connection that was made that has led to a revenue share for you?
So yeah, they happen all the time. I mean, 2 days ago, I just had one. One of our members reached out to me and said, "Hey," because they got an event coming up next month, and the investment to attend their event is $11,000, and they just had a member or another person sign up for that event, and they had agreed previously to give me 20% of any revenue that comes as for them. And so he was like, Kev, can you send me the link? So I want to share my 20% with you and stuff. And that's a common occurrence. That happens all the time. We also get to make, man, I mean, so we're regularly making introductions that lead to 5 and 6 and 7 figure business deals. And the goal where we're going, I want to be doing 8, 9, and 10 figure business deals and stuff. And so that's the path that we're on. That's where we're going and stuff. But right now, 5, 6, and 7 deals, that happens all the time. I know one of these two guys I connected, Dan and Sachin, they started doing some stuff together, and in just 4 months, they created $1.4 million in revenue together in just 4 months.
Nice.
And so, right people having the right conversation for the right reasons. And that's what allows that kind of thing to happen.
You said that you still do some live events. What do those look like today?
Uh, they're few and far between because I am a husband and a father to 7 kids, and I am grandpa to 6 grandchildren currently, soon to be 7 grandchildren. And so I used to do way more events and in person. And now I do them whenever somebody that I know and that knows me starts asking, Kev, when are you going to do another event? Well, it goes on my radar. I'm like, okay, let's plan on doing another event. So that happened recently. So I'm like, well, April would be a good time to host an event and stuff. And so, but the live events don't they don't stop me from doing what I do and stuff. So it's just when I feel the urge to do it, and when somebody starts feeling the urge where they're talking to me about it, then I'm like, okay, well, let's start putting something in place, and we'll do another one. So
Yeah. All right. So wrapping things up here, you have the $1 Million Relationship podcast. It's available in any of your favorite podcast directories, I assume. Tell us a little
Yes.
bit about the podcast, why it exists, and why somebody might be interested in tuning in.
So the podcast, Million Dollar Relationships podcast, we're 3.5 years into having that experience. That's how everybody comes into my world now. Everybody gets introduced to me, and we'll start off by having just a get to know each other conversation. Just had one of those this morning, and from there we'll end up scheduling a podcast interview. And I'll tell you, the podcast, it has become such a valuable tool in so many ways. It attracts the right kind of entrepreneurs to me. It helps me expand my network. It helps. I these interviews become tools that I get to use when making introductions. I share the interviews as well when I'm making it, so they can go check each other out before they even talk for the first time and stuff. And once they watch part of their podcast interviews, they don't have to watch the whole thing. They'll watch in like 5-10 minutes. They're gonna feel like, oh yeah, this is somebody I want to get to know. And man, I'm really grateful for Kevin for introducing us. And so it's become a tool for that as well. And I'll tell you what, you talk about adding some horsepower behind making introductions. I mean, man, the podcast has become a valuable tool for that. And it's just such a great way to lead with a giving hand and be of service and of value to other people to start with. And so, yeah, I mean, hosting the Million Dollar Relationships podcast has been one of the most valuable and just rewarding things I've done in my 30 years as an entrepreneur.
That's wonderful. And of course, again, you can search for that in your favorite podcast directory. I'll put a link to the podcast also in the show notes.
Sure.
Real quick, Kevin, is there anything else you want to promote or let people know where they can find you? Anything else like that?
No, I would just say if you've been listening to this and your curiosity is piqued and you'd like to get to know each other, I'd be totally open to having a conversation with you. Go check out the podcast. And if what you see there resonates too, and you'd be open to do an interview, then hit me up on Facebook or LinkedIn or what have you.
Or
I'm
email.
Kevin the Connector on Facebook, and or emails too. Good
Well,
too.
I was
And
say you can email me and I will do an email
okay.
introduction to Kevin. So
Awesome. Awesome. I appreciate that, Cliff. I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your story and your journey. I know for a fact there's at least 4 or 5 people that I am immediately going to send a link to this conversation to because they need to hear it. Kevin, thank you so
Awesome.
much. I am honored that Chuck Marting has connected us. Thank you, Chuck.
Yes.
And I am very much looking forward to being a guest on your show next month.
Awesome. Same here.
All right. Stick around. I'll be with you in just a moment, Kevin. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this live stream. If you know somebody who is a connector, who has connected you to somebody else that has had a profound positive impact on your life, and you know that they have a gift and they do this for others all of the time, and they've dreamed their entire life, I wonder if there's any way I could ever get paid to do this. I want you to send a link to this particular piece of content to them and have them listen, because there are real possibilities to do that thing that you were put on this earth to do. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do in life to the next level. Bye-bye.